Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my Week 14 Top 25 predictions. I am doing this a little bit after the Memphis Tulane game, so whatever. I'll just show you guys my prediction. I made this prediction video before I left for Thanksgiving. I tried to get the video out, but I didn't have enough time, and I had to take off for family stuff, so that's why I didn't get out sooner, so I apologize, but no more excuses. Got to get this thing out before game day, which actually starts a day early. There's a couple games played on Fridays, so which is kind of interesting. But with that being said, a like and subscribe, have a comment. Also, let's get straight into this thing. So Memphis at Tulane. This was my prediction. I had a feeling Memphis was going to play it tough, and I think Tulane is heavily overrated, and that showed. I'll save the score for the whatever. You guys already probably know the score at this point. Memphis ended up beating Tulane. They ended up beating Tulane, which was huge if you're an ASU fan, but Tulane also did turn the ball over 3 times, but this is not a good loss for Tulane, mainly because one of Memphis's losses to Navy, a team that Tulane shut out. So this was not a good loss in their home stadium, and it's going to knock that whole conference out of the college football playoff talk. Tulane was starting to climb up the polls very fast, just one spot behind the highest Big 12 being ASU. They could have made a name for themselves, but no. They once again miss out just barely. So I thought Memphis was going to make it tough because they're also still fighting for that conference championship spot, but I wasn't too sure because they've had some bad losses, and they ultimately play in the AAC. So it's like, even though they're winning games, it's like it's the AAC. But I guess they do have a win over Florida State, so that's pretty cool, but Florida State is awful, so that didn't really surprise me. Oregon State at Boise State. On to the games that haven't been played yet. I am absolutely praying as an ASU fan that Boise State loses a game. Please, please let them lose a game. Oregon State's not going to be the team to do it. I think if it's going to be anybody, it's going to be whoever they play in the Mountain West Championship. But I do think that Oregon State will give them a tough time because Oregon State, not only is their last opportunity to get bowl eligible, they just pretty much won the Pac-12 championship because they beat Washington State, which was a huge underdog game. They actually had to come back and win that one. They were down They were down for a little bit of the game. It was pretty back and forth, actually. But quite frankly, Washington State was one of those teams that people thought was pretty good this year. Losing to Oregon State, who was on a 5-game losing streak, got shut out at Air Force. I mean, just got walloped a lot of these games. Even lost to Nevada, who is terrible. But Oregon State definitely bounced back with that Washington State. I believe they're going to carry that momentum into the Boise State game. Ashton Jeanty was a little banged up in the Wyoming game, but I do think he came back and ended up being the reason they ended up beating Wyoming, which should show you how useless they are without him. But Boise State has also, on the other side of things, been winning a lot of close games. You beat Wyoming by 4 points. They might have beat San Jose State by 21, but, dude, San Jose State was up 21-14. It was just it's San Jose State. What do you expect? They beat Nevada by 7 points, UNLV by 5 points. Like, they have been having a hard time winning some of their Mountain West games. So I wouldn't be surprised if Oregon State makes it a little bit difficult for Boise State, maybe scheming up a couple early points that catches Boise State off guard. But I've got Boise State winning it probably at some point in the fourth quarter. Oklahoma State at Colorado. Oklahoma State is on their way to a defeated Big 12 conference record, which is unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. Because, like, dude, they literally were up to number 14. They were up to number 14 before they took a 3-point loss to Utah, which we were like, dang, man. Wow, what a great performance by these teams. What a fabulous performance. These are definitely the 2 best teams in the Big 12. Wrong. And they proceed to lose every game from that point on. Utah has not won a conference game. While they've come very close, they have not won a conference game aside from Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State hasn't won a single one. They've been getting killed left and right, and they almost beat BYU on the road, which was pretty crazy. But definitely interesting. But Colorado must-win game. I don't think there's any shot that they're losing this game. And again, I've got ASU's background back there because we're rooting for Oklahoma State. We don't want Colorado, in my opinion. I think Colorado would be very, very difficult for ASU to contain. But I do think, and I'm not too sure about BYU, not too sure how I would feel about them, but ASU, I think ideally would want Iowa State. I think that's who they would want to play. You don't want to play the same team twice ever. That's usually just bad news. But I think the team we want is Iowa State. So Iowa State, I want them to win this week. I, of course, want ASU to win. This is all being said if ASU ends up beating U of A, which could be a very difficult task. But, yeah, we want Colorado to lose as much as possible, but Oklahoma State's not going to do that. Mississippi State at Ole Miss. No question here. There's going to be a lot of roughhousing in this game. I don't know if this is Ole Miss's actual stadium back here or if this is a really old stadium, but if it is, this stadium is absolutely pathetic. This stadium is absolutely terrible. They need to upgrade stadiums and get a big-ass stadium because if this is really it, this is awful. Like, that is terrible. Look at all those fans showing up to the game just to sell it out in like 2 minutes because the field is god-awful. I really hope that's not the actual field. But I got Ole Miss winning big in this one. They kind of have to. The fact that they're number 14 is crazy. Georgia Tech at Georgia. I believe Haynes King is playing in this game. It is at Georgia. Carson Beck has kind of started to enter his element. Let's hope that Georgia wins this game, because if Georgia doesn't win this game, that is really not good for the SEC. Because even though I don't like the SEC, and I think they get meat righted by the whole college football world. I would like Georgia Tech to win this game, but really, if Georgia Tech wins this game, that looks awful for the college football playoff. If you understand, like, because there's so many teams that are right there for the college football playoff for the SEC. You take one step outside of the conference and you lose, oh, that would look terrible. But I don't think there's any real shot of that. I think Georgia Tech might take advantage of a couple Georgia turnovers. Georgia Tech has kind of had a sneaky defense this year, a sneaky strong defense. They did hold Miami to one of their lowest point totals. I think actually their lowest point total of the year, which Miami's offense, at least up until that game, you could say they're considered to be one of the most high-powered offenses in the league. Yeah, and Georgia Tech kind of shut them down, held them to just 23 points. So maybe Georgia Tech's got some defensive firepower there that is hidden. But the real thing here is Haynes King healthy? And I believe he is. I looked up stuff, didn't really find anything. I believe he is healthy. With Haynes King on the field, I think this team stands a much stronger chance than people really give them credit for. This team, in their stretch of losses, in Georgia Tech's stretch of losses, like Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, they did not have their star quarterback. Or I say star. Well, yeah, star quarterback. He's been really good. They did not have him. They've had other quarterbacks in, which instantly, without Haynes King, it's a big drop-off. I mean, the Virginia Tech game, the offense for Georgia Tech looked pathetic against Notre Dame without Haynes King. The offense looked pathetic. I mean, like, they need this guy. They need this guy desperately to be playing football, because when they do, they look like a much better football team. The problem is sometimes they like to do a little thing called turn the ball over. Like against Louisville, they pretty much gave them a scoop and score. They gave him a scoop and score, which can happen because Haynes King, quite frankly, he runs the ball a lot. And when quarterbacks run the ball, they don't like to protect the ball. I think if Georgia Tech can avoid turning the ball over as much as possible, I mean, if turnovers happen in the fourth quarter when you're really trying to hang in there, whatever. But I think if Georgia Tech can keep possession of the ball, maybe win the time of possession game and stuff, and make big plays offensively, this Georgia Tech team, man, you lose 2 games without your starting quarterback. Like, I think Georgia Tech, I think they can cause some problems with Georgia. Georgia also hasn't been like, they haven't been just, oh no, maybe Haynes King isn't playing, or maybe he got benched. I'm not sure. This Aaron Philo kid looks like he was playing for Haynes King instead, at least for a little bit. Well, this actually adds a whole new level because Aaron Philo looks really good passing the ball at least, and he can run the ball, but you put Haynes King in there, he can throw the ball, he can run the ball, that's for sure. So you get a dual threat in terms of 2 quarterbacks, a lot more for your team to contain there, a lot more. But quite frankly, on the Georgia side of things, they have really struggled this season. They put up a very bad performance against Ole Miss, like a really bad performance. Their only good performance this year was against Tennessee, but after that, dude, they literally let UMass drop 21 on them. UMass was getting ready to score another one before they turned into UMass and just let the game fly away from them. I mean, like, UMass is awful. Like, they're 2-9, and you're letting them drop 21 points on you. I think there could be some major flaws in Georgia going into this game. I don't want to say put it on upset alert, but you could definitely say it's going to be interesting. I think Georgia Tech is a bit of a sleeper here. Michigan at Ohio State. Dude, it's really still, even after Michigan has collapsed back to no national championship, no college football playoff appearances, which is weird for me because when I started to really like college football, Michigan was a top team. Like, that's crazy to think about. I've always known, at least from when I've tuned into college football, I've always known that Michigan is a good football team, but that's not necessarily the case throughout history. This is kind of how Michigan really has been. Not maybe on such a severe level where they're 6-5, but this is how they have been this year. It's kind of crazy that they had this team ranked at number 9 at the preseason, but whatever. Michigan at Ohio State. You can never count on an easy prediction in this game, even though Ohio State fans would probably disagree. Ohio State is going to get ready to drop a dumpy on this team. But I do think Michigan is getting ready to go in here with their hard hats on. Michigan, they drew up a lot of trick plays last year. They drew up a lot of trick plays, a lot of sneaky things on offense. And I think their offense has significantly improved from the start of the year. After all, they played a very close game with Indiana, dropped 50 on Northwestern. Maybe they're feeling themselves a little bit going into this. They also have a win over one rival this season, Michigan State. So I think Michigan could score some points, but I think Ohio State ultimately is just one of the best teams in the country. They're going to take it away with talent. But you can always count on a rivalry to have more. And funny enough, the Ohio State is favored by 19.5. I've got them winning by 19. I didn't even plan for that. Tennessee at Vandy. I believe Diego Pavia is getting ready to play in this game, but he has been hurt from what I've seen. At least from what, when I tapped on the game, it said, talks about Pavia injury status. From what it sounded like is they're getting ready to play, dude, but without this guy, Vandy is not really the same team. They're not the same team. But with this guy behind the center, taking the snaps, this game gets really scary for Tennessee because Vandy has been sneaky good. After all, Vandy beat Alabama, which is one of Tennessee's best wins this year. So I think that actually is Tennessee's best win this year. I think that's it. But I think Vanderbilt, dude, they have not been able to take down Tennessee and so long. This is probably their best year to do, and Tennessee is a playoff contender. This rivalry is going to be big. There's going to be a lot of Tennessee fans there. I think we can expect a good matchup. I think we can expect a really good matchup. keep in mind, if you're looking at this prediction and listening right now, this is with the anticipation that Diego Pavia is healthy. So if Diego Pavia is not there when this game starts and Tennessee wins like 51-3, this will not count as a hideous prediction, okay? I'm going off of the fact that I think Diego Pavia will be healthy, okay? Okay, cool. And if Diego Pavia is healthy, I think that just brings a whole new element to this team, mainly offensively. Something else that the Vanderbilt guy talked about on that video was not only Diego Pavia's health, but also the run game. The run game. He said that it looked better and whatnot, but then it fell apart. So if Vanderbilt can also establish a run game offensively, which Diego Pavia would bring a lot of that to the table, Vanderbilt can make this game interesting, but ultimately Tennessee does have a super solid defense, and offensively, kinda. But I think maybe turnovers will lead to points in this game, and Vanderbilt's resilience will lead to late points. I think you can expect a good matchup between these two if Diego Pavia is healthy. South Carolina at Clemson. Which one of these teams losing benefits ASU? Neither. It doesn't matter. Which is kind of a gift and a curse at the same time. Because I don't really think there's a way for either of these teams if they lose a game. Definitely not South Carolina. There's no way as a 4-loss team they're getting in. Clemson as a 3-loss team could make the argument, but considering they're already the 12 seed and not projected to get in right now, still difficult. If Clemson loses, I don't think there's any way they get in. And I think South Carolina is going to win it. This one's really interesting because it's at Clemson. It's in Death Valley. I think you can expect South Carolina fans to show up, especially with their team highly ranked like this. But we also have seen South Carolina in the past that one year they went into an overrated Clemson team and they ended up beating them. But that game was still pretty close. You can expect a great rivalry between these, a great matchup. But Clemson has had a pretty solid defense this year. For the most part, at least. If they're not completely outclassed by their opponent like they were against Georgia, they've been holding teams to pretty little points. The only bad example of this was, I guess, Virginia. Virginia was in that game for a while. Not counting NC State, that game was over 52-7 by halftime. And then I guess Louisville took a dookie on them. South Carolina could take away with this one, but they also have made a lot of mistakes in big games, a lot of turnovers, bad time penalties. So I think South Carolina can win this game. After all, their quarterback is very, very good there. Clemson's favored. Their defense could walk away with some turnovers, but we'll see mainly how South Carolina's defense will perform against Clemson, because so far, Cade Klubnik, against relatively good defense, has looked terrible. The offense has looked terrible for Clemson. That is their problem. Is Clemson, if you're up against like a mediocre defense, the team is the number one team in the country. But if they're up against a solid defense, even if the opposing offense is kind of poop, they're just not, nothing's happening. Nothing's going to happen because Clemson can't do anything offensively. They can't score points. So I think South Carolina is going to take this one. I straight up took them by a point just because I literally was just saying, give me South Carolina. That's all. Illinois at Northwestern. I wasn't even going to predict this game because I don't care, but whatever. Take it. Maryland at Penn State. Maryland 4-7. Give me Penn State. Notre Dame at USC. This one is really difficult for me because USC has played very, very tough this season. They've recently started to bounce back with a win against Nebraska and a win against their actual rival, UCLA, their in-state rival. They went on the road to UCLA and they won. Now they get to go back home and play the biggest game of the year. Notre Dame is only favored by 7.5. USC has played some tough competition this year, you guys. You can't lie. Worst loss being to Maryland in a game they were up big into and they just blew it. They were up 28-14 in the fourth quarter and they blew it. That's their worst loss. Washington on the road maybe was a pretty bad loss, but quite frankly, maybe at Michigan was a pretty bad loss. But they have a win over LSU. They lost to Minnesota, who's been very competitive. Lost in overtime to Penn State. People forget about that. Beat Nebraska, beat UCLA, killed Rutgers. killed Wisconsin, shut out Utah State. I mean, talk about Mountain West teams, right? Totally, dude. But that's the second Mountain West team that's been shut out that I've seen. The other one being Colorado State versus Texas. Just a little side note. But USC has played pretty competitive this year. I'm just not sure. It looks like their offense is regressing, and USC's got a new quarterback in there. So I don't know if Miller Moss got injured or if he got benched. I'm not sure. But the offense has been regressing. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe Miller Moss got benched because it looks like that Nebraska game, he didn't even show up. It looks like he didn't even pop in the game. I think he got benched. Maybe that's the right move for this team, or maybe not, because the offense hasn't looked as good. It didn't really look anything special this season. Their best performance was against Rutgers or maybe maybe Penn State. But, I mean, beat LSU, right? LSU was a top team in the SEC. USC's a bottom feeder. I think you can expect a lot more from USC in this game. I think you can expect a lot more, especially if the quarterback switch has been working. It looks like he's been protecting the ball more over the air. But Notre Dame has also been sneaky. Notre Dame has also been sneaky good this year. Every time they've gone up against a ranked opponent, aside from Louisville, we'll just wait a second. Pretty much every time from the point on they've gone into a game past the Louisville game, they have just dominated. They have dominated. Now, the ranked teams that they played in that time span were military schools that probably were not that good in the first place. They still have absolutely dominated the schedule. They've dominated. Their only close game was against Louisville, and Louisville has been a very good team this year. It's just dropping that game to Stanford was awful. That was terrible. Because Louisville definitely has been a better team than that. They've been a better team than that. They should have played better than that, but that was a bad loss. That, quite frankly, could have taken away their playoff opportunity. But Notre Dame, they've played one tough team on their schedule so far, and that looks to be Louisville. I'm not even going to count A&M right now, because right now A&M drops down to a 3-loss team. They with this Marcel Reed guy have lost 2 SEC games now, and honestly, they didn't. And the good quarterback that it looks like for me was the Connor Wayman guy. He was leading this Texas A&M team to a lot of wins, but when Marcel Reed came into the LSU game, because I think Connor Wayman got like hurt or something, he got like this freshman buzz when he broke away for some big touchdowns and had the game of his life. People got to realize in that LSU win, the Marcel Reed kid, he was 2 for 2 over the air. He was 2 for 2. So he only threw 2 passes for 70 yards. Good stuff. But it was like a freshman buzz. It was like the team was just on fuego when bro walked into the house. Like, he was just on fire. And since then, they have regressed a lot. And the fact of the matter is now they look even worse than they did with Connor Wayman. Notre Dame beat Texas A&M with Connor Wayman and made them look so terrible, made them look awful. Notre Dame's defense locked the fuck up. But I think that's SEC play, gassing them up. I think a lot of the SEC teams might actually be pretty overrated this year. I think we're in for it in the college football playoff. I think we're in for a big SEC flop. I could be wrong, but we'll wait and see. We could be in for a big SEC flop in the playoffs. But USC, Big Ten looks like the best conference right now. I don't feel like there's much of a question. Big Ten feels like it's the best conference. Definitely looks like it's the best conference. And I'm going to take USC. Now, I just put Notre Dame at number 3 in my poll. And I do think they have the ability to be that team. But this USC team is criminally underrated. Like a lot of the teams in the Big Ten are criminally underrated. And I don't remember what video I said it in, but I kind of went off. I might have cut it out. It might have been the video I cut it out. But quite frankly, you look at the Big Ten, you've got the top 4 schools and then Illinois, and the rest are unranked. But I feel like that is actual competition. Minnesota has been competing with the top dogs. Nebraska has been competing with the top dogs. Wisconsin has been competing with the top dogs. USC, like when they get their opportunities, there's been countless, like Penn State 3-point win over USC. Penn State 1-point win over Minnesota. Nebraska 4-point loss against Ohio State. Wisconsin 3-point loss against Oregon. They're competing very, very well, and I think taking a step outside of the conference, especially in a big rivalry game like this that's also at USC, I think you take USC here. I think USC has got this one. I could be wrong, though. Notre Dame could walk away with this one big time because this is also a game they're preparing for a lot right now. But I do think USC is waiting for that big win this season that they never got. Miami at Syracuse. There's a lot of sneaky games this week. Miami has really, really, really been scraping by. They're starting to lose my interest. They jump up to number 6 in the polls, which is crazy talk, considering all they did was beat Wake Forest. They jumped up 2 spots. And Syracuse, another team that dropped one to Stanford. This team could be a 2-loss team right now in the ACC if they just didn't turn the ball over and play like shit against a bad Stanford team. Like, they also have a win over UNLV. They threw like 3 pick sixes against Pitt to lose that game. Like, that game could have been a little bit more competitive, and they dropped one. They dropped one kind of towards the end of the game against Boston College. Those are their 3 losses: Pitt, Boston College, and Stanford. Those are all games that if they just get another opportunity, they could play better in. While I don't think this team is the best team ever, Kyle McCord has definitely been a ridiculously underrated quarterback here at Syracuse. He's having a great season for Syracuse. You know, he's got more yards thrown than Cam Ward. He's at 4,000 yards with 1 game left in the season. Cam Ward, though, has also been having a great season. 34 touchdowns for Cam Ward. Kyle McCord's thrown more picks, also thrown less touchdowns, but Syracuse also has, looks like, a better run game. Their running back has had a better season so far than Damian Martinez. Damian Martinez has gotten a lot less carries, but I think you can expect a super offensive matchup. But give me Miami in a close one. Give me Miami in a really, really close one. Syracuse has also kind of dropped some bombs. They've made some bad mistakes. Maybe they're going to make it in overtime. But I think Miami will win this one and secure their spot in the ACC championship game. Cal at SMU. SMU's got this one in wraps. They're playing really good right now. Auburn at Alabama. Auburn finally got their win. Coming off of a heater right now. That has been a much-needed Auburn win. They're fighting for bowl game eligibility. Alabama just got embarrassed by Oklahoma. But the Iron Bowl is the Iron Bowl. You can kick all that out of the window and expect these teams to play like dogs. Give me Alabama in a very close one. Could be wrong. Jalen Milroe could run and score 50 points because that's been all of Alabama's dominations this year is when Jalen Milroe is just able to run the ball. When he's able to run all over the place, they kill teams. But when he's forced to sit in the pocket and throw and he can't really run that much, Alabama turns into a whole nother level of bad. So if Auburn can do that, and I do think they will, linebacker was talking that talk, I do think this game will be very close, but Auburn can never win the big games. They won against Texas A&M, thankfully, to a lucky drop. Come on. It hit him right in the hands. But give me Alabama in a close game. Oh, my gosh. Scariest game of the year. Scariest game of the year. No doubt about it. The problem here is, sorry for the mic noise. It had to be as loud as possible. The scary thing here is ASU is coming off of a heater. And I do think the culture has shifted with Kenny Dillingham back there. And ASU has performed very well in the first half of games. We've shown that we can be electric and explosive. We have a ridiculously good offense as well as a very solid defense. But we have not been favored in these games. Now, we're favored big time. We're looking to the future. We're getting lost in the sauce, as Kenny Dillingham has said, and I hope he's preparing. But quite frankly, I've been tuning into Cam Scadaboo's Warzone streams, and I don't know if we're really preparing for this. Now, I'm sure I don't got a problem with them playing video games. Don't take that the wrong way, but I just really hope we're ready for this game, man, because Arizona, while they have been very, very bad this season, don't get it twisted, they have been putting up quite a bit of points. Now, something that is very important to note is teams score a lot of points on this team. Teams score a lot of points, which means their defense is very stinky. Arizona's defense is very stinky. Sorry, I don't know why I said it like that. The Arizona's defense is very stinky, but their offense has been able to catch a little bit of fire this season. They have been able to throw a lot. They did very well against TCU offensively. And this is a big game. And there is a man named, I think, we'll just call him T-Mac. There's a man named T-Mac on Arizona. Very tall, very good receiver. We can't deny it as ASU fans. Very good receiver. No Fafita has not been the best quarterback ever. He's got way more yards than Sam Levitt, but a less touchdown and a lot more interceptions. But who knows, man? If you can't pressure this quarterback, which ASU has struggled to pressure the quarterbacks quite a bit, if you can't get pressure on him, he's going to find T-Mac offensively. Our run game has been a lot better than theirs, but I'm worried about Arizona's offense going into this game. I'm worried Arizona's offense is going to have a lot easier of a time against our defense with passion and momentum. But aside from all that, I think we can expect a lot of turnovers on both sides of the ball. A lot of fourth downs that we go for that we don't maybe get, a lot of turnovers. And ASU lost a very close one in 2022 against an Arizona team that was a lot better than them. A lot better than them. They were like 4-7 going in that game. ASU was like 3-8. But ASU, we had lost everything. We lost to Eastern Michigan. We were much worse than Arizona. We only lost by 3 points in a game we had 5 turnovers in. This most recent year before this year, we lost by a lot because we didn't have a starting quarterback. We were using our tight end as a quarterback in Cam Scadaboo. I believe that ASU does have a lot. All the players that stayed and have dealt with Arizona's torture. Dealt with Arizona's torture for these past couple years. I mean, they dropped 59 on us last year. In a game we didn't have a quarterback. They shoved in our face that we were a collapsed program. We have bounced back super, super hard. And I think it's going to be close, but I think ASU's got it. I'm going to take ASU. While I say that Arizona's offense might have an easier time against their defense, against ASU's defense, and our offense is absolutely loaded, we can score points against their defense. I still think that there's going to be a lot of pivotal points in the game or penalties or fourth down failures that are going to lead to no points. And I think this one's going to be a freaking dogfight, and it's going to scare me. I think this one's going to be a dogfight, but ASU has to win this game. This is a must-win game. We cannot start making mistakes. This is a must-win game. I cannot stress that enough. Arkansas at Missouri. Give me Missouri by a lot. Purdue at Indiana. Give me Indiana by a lot. Washington at Oregon. Washington did go into Oregon a couple years ago and win, but that was a much better Washington team under Kalen DeBoer. Give me Oregon by a lot. Texas at Texas A&M. This is the big one. While I just said I don't think Texas A&M is that good, they're still playing SEC teams. This Texas team, their only loss is to one of the best, that's for sure, but their only ranked opponent on the schedule. Texas and Texas A&M. It's at Texas A&M. This stadium is going to be rocking. This game has been huge. This game has been hyped up for a while. Texas A&M dropped one to Auburn, which is kind of funny because Mike Elko on a press conference was like, "We're looking forward to Auburn," and then they lose to Auburn, which is pretty funny, pretty comical. But now he gets to look for Texas, and now that your team is playing underdog, getting ready, you could upset this team and punch your ticket into the SEC championship. Give me Texas A&M. I'm betting against Texas. I think Texas has a very good defense, but I do think that their offense has been stinky. And Texas A&M has had a pretty solid defense this year, pretty relatively, to say the least. While the final score of the Auburn A&M game was like 43-41, a lot of those points came in overtime, which is expected. A lot of those points came in overtime. But I mean, the only game in which Texas A&M's defense didn't show up was really the South Carolina game. There has been a lot of defensive games, though, where this team has locked up pretty well. And I look at Texas's offense as a pretty mid-tier offense. Not very anything special this year. I think A&M can win this one. Kansas State at Iowa State. This one is also huge for ASU because while ASU is going to be fighting their own demons, this game determines which team is going to get into the Big 12 championship. If Iowa State loses this one to Kansas State, BYU will be the team in, most likely. Yeah, BYU would be the team in. If somehow BYU were to lose to Houston, Iowa State were to lose, and Colorado were to lose, I think Kansas State might get in, or maybe like Baylor. I don't even know. Maybe Texas Tech. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that works, what way that'll go. But I think Iowa State does have this one. This one is kind of in a rivalry, like the forced rivalry, like LSU A&M when they move conferences. This one looks like it's the forced rivalry. It's always played at the end of the year. And it's been a pretty good matchup these past couple of years. Last year, Iowa State, I think, won it on the road at Kansas State. So Kansas State could be kind of pissed there, but I think Iowa State going in their home stadium bounce back with the win against Cincinnati. I think this one's going to be a sellout. Iowa State has been winning a lot of close games and kind of been losing a recent bit. I think Iowa State has got this one. Maybe close. It will be close, but I think Iowa State's got this one. Nevada at UNLV. Nevada may be a bad team, but they play teams close. Give me a close game here. And then to finish it off, I didn't even care about changing the background. Give me BYU. And that's the last game of the week. Final week of normal predictions. It's so sad. I really do want to try and post some videos in the off season. I don't really know what to do though. So cook up some ideas as a viewer if you've made it this far. But with that being said, a like and subscribe would help. A comment always helps. That's all from me. Adios.